All right, good afternoon and welcome to our third program panel for Herndon Career Center. Today we are joined by our Health and Human Services programs and their instructors. Under this umbrella of programs, we have our Law Enforcement and Police Science class. We currently have two instructors for this program, Roger Bowers and Angelique Huth. We also have a Foundations of Nursing program taught by Susan Pratt and Terry Plesser. And we have an EMT program taught by Eric Dooley, or an emergency medical technician. So I want to start out by just giving them each a chance to introduce themselves. So I will go ahead and hand this off to Roger Bowers and law enforcement.
Okay, well, my name is Roger Bowers. And Nate, do you want us to go ahead and cover some of the basics of our program right now, or just a brief introduction? Okay, I'm going to go through the kind of some of the topics we go over and a little bit about law enforcement. Again, I'm Roger Bowers. This is my third year at Herndon Career Center, retired police officer with Lee Summit, Missouri Police Department. My final years were school resource officer at Lee Summit North. So if there's any Broncos out there, you may have seen me if you're a junior this year, but most of them now have already graduated that I worked with. Our program is a one-year program that a few students are allowed to expand into a second-year program. Some of our topics covered, we go through a textbook, an introduction to criminal justice textbook that covers the police, courts, corrections, go through criminal case law, procedures. We do some firearm simulation. We go through a lot of police procedures from car stops to handcuffing. We get into some discussion on defensive tactics, and we even do some physical training as optional right now as with virtual. We try to be about 50-50 classroom lecture, working in small groups in a classroom setting, and 50% lab time. Some of the credentials you can get, there's a state industry recognized credential that's put on by Missouri Peace Officers Association, and police departments, when you graduate, will take a look at that, and that can help you kind of get your foot in the door to working with the department. We are this year also going to offer CPR and OSHA 10 as some industry credentials too. For post-secondary right now, there are some options that we can explore when you get into the program as far as dual credit or articulated credit. For post-secondary, a lot of our students do go on to apply for jobs like dispatch or the jail, and we also do have students that go on to get their college degree. One of the first students I got the opportunity to work with more when she was a student at Lee Summit North is going to be a police officer for Lee Summit. Some of the things we want to cover, and we talk about some preconceived notions of how police are viewed on TV. We talk a little bit about CSI, and we get into how that's a part that a lot of students show an interest in, but we also want to make sure students understand that a lot of departments, you have to work with the department for a couple years. The way we include industry is we use guest speakers. We have speakers from various police departments. Ms. Huth and I both have backgrounds with Lee Summit in Kansas City, so we can bring, I just see from Nate, I'm handling every question. Sorry about that. I will move on from there and let him go to the next speaker. It's covering too much.
Angelique, would you like to introduce yourself and your background just a little bit?
Sure. I'm Angelique Huth. I'm retired from the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I was there just shy of 16 years. My last assignment there was at the Training Academy, and I was the lead physical training and defensive tactics instructor there. So I was at the academy for about 7 years and then had some fun assignments before that. This is my first year at Herndon and working with Roger, so I'm excited. Hopefully we'll see some of you next year.
Okay, and for our Foundations of Nursing program, Susan Pratt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Susan Pratt, and I'm one of the Foundations of Nursing instructors. This is my 9th year here at Herndon. I actually started out here at Herndon as a junior, and at that time it was the health occupations class. I've been a nurse since the mid-'80s, so I kind of worked my way up, and I've been in nursing. I've worked hospitals, nursing home, now in education, a little bit of home health, and so it's really exciting.
And Terry Plesser?
Hi, I've been here, I think this is my 12th year, I think so. Yeah. Well, anyway, my background other than education has been in ICU management for a long time. Like Susan, I was nurse mid 80s. Yeah, that sounds good. So I've been around a little bit. I love working with teenagers. It's wonderful to watch them grow as they learn to take care of somebody else other than themselves. So that's it.
Thank you. And Eric Dooley for Emergency Medical Technician.
Hello, I am Eric Dooley. I am the Emergency Medical Technician instructor. I am a paramedic. Been a paramedic for a little over 30 years now. Spent 20 of that in Kansas City. Still currently work in my free time as a paramedic. This is our 4th year for an EMT program at Herndon. And yeah, so that's about it for now.
Okay, and I do want to mention one program that has not joined our program panel today. We are looking next year at adding one new class to this program cluster called Introduction to Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine. And so just to touch on that a little bit, a lot of these questions are hard to answer. A teacher brings so much to their program from a curricular standpoint and from their experiences and the opportunities that they have access to. But generally speaking, what we're looking at with the Intro to Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine program is to give students kind of an exploratory program that will cover the history of physical therapy, the relationship between physical therapists, physical therapy assistants, physical therapy aides, and other sports medicine professionals. We'll also go through a lot of medical terminology and other healthcare professions. This would be a great class for anybody who's interested in physical therapy. Maybe you're interested in studying kinesiology, sports medicine. Maybe you want to be a personal trainer. Anything that deals with kind of the ambulation of joints in the body, because they'll understand how to help patients walk with assistive devices like walkers, crutches, and canes. But you'll also look at balance and coordination disorders, as well as like athletic training. So certifications for this program will just be a simple OSHA 10-hour card and a CPR first aid certificate. This is really designed to be exploratory in nature to help students decide if this is a career path for them. So that is about the only information you will get on that program today. But if you have more questions, please feel free to email me and I will do some research and get you an answer. So just to kind of get into our questions here, the first question is, what are some core topics that your curriculum will cover over the course of the year? Now let's go ahead and start out with law enforcement and police science.
I'll get myself unmuted. I apologize. I was kind of going into my spiel earlier. The core topics is we really divided the year by semesters. In the first half of the year, we cover the introduction to criminal justice. Right now, we've, because of virtual learning, we've really still gotten basically into the police side of it, but that also includes police procedures. Our next step is we'll talk about the courts and corrections. From there, we'll get into talking about criminal law, case law, and the big part of the second semester, we will talk about investigations, do some mock crime scenes, mock investigations, and talk about, and that's usually a part most kids really like and get into kind of doing some crime scene processing.
Excellent, thank you. And foundations of nursing?
Okay, some of the core topics that we cover are anatomy and physiology, medical terminology. They will become certified in American Heart Association first aid and CPR. We always talk about professional communication, how to work, how to be a good employee. Basically, we are teaching them how to take care of other human beings and to everything that they did, you know, when they got up this morning to get ready for school. We are teaching them to work with our elderly population and to learn those skills, the bed making, the showering, toileting, and so forth. We talk about legal, ethical issues, communication, all the changes associated with aging. So a lot more, but in a nutshell.
An excellent description. And emergency medical technician.
All right, so the EMT program is a nationally set curriculum. So it's a very standardized curriculum approved by the state of Missouri. We obviously, we go over CPR, first aid, medical emergencies, trauma. We spend a lot of time discussing body systems. So there's a lot of curriculum in an EMT program, and there's a lot to cover. So basically, if you think about, if you call 911 and need, but if you can Google the curriculum of an EMT program, and you'll see exactly everything that we cover.
Thank you. So our programs at Herndon Career Center are a little bit different. We have students for about 2.5 hours every day. So can you just give an overview of how time is spent in your classroom between instruction, projects and lab work, or classwork in a standard school year? And let's go to law enforcement. Roger, you're still muted.
Hit the button once there. Okay, we try to divide our day in two parts, or at least when we were in person, this is what I was doing my first year, is we would take the first half of the class, or depends on how the day was going, and we would work on coursework, lecture, talking through procedures. Then with that, we try to work in some group work on dividing up. We would take important cases that they might do, and they would do case briefings, presentations for the class. Then the other half of the class we like to spend doing lab time, whether it's simulated car stops, crime scene investigations. Mrs. Youth's been working this year a lot with going through handcuffing procedures and defensive tactics procedures, working on some of those skills.
Thank you. And foundations of nursing?
Get here. There is no lag time. The first day you start learning your skills. We have a very short period of time to get you ready to go to clinical. Clinical is when we go to the nursing home, and Susan will talk a little bit more about that later, but we've got a lot to learn. And clinical usually starts the beginning of October. So when we start school, you're learning skills and you're practicing skills in the lab. Alongside with curriculum telling you why you're doing what you're doing and why it's so important. We go to clinical 2 days a week, and we kind of just slow down a little bit when we start going to clinical because we can cover a little bit more curriculum in class. That's it. Need 100 clinical hours to be able to sit for the test, and those hours are done in the nursing home.
Okay, a great answer. And EMT?
So the EMT program, we have a lot, like nursing, we have a lot of information to cover, and we hit the ground running. Just to give you a little bit of example, here is our textbook, and there's 41 chapters. Each chapter is very specific to an illness or a disease, trauma, or in the preparatory work, it's body systems. So if you spend your time at home studying, then the more time we have in the classroom to put it all together to learn the skills. So we have skills. We also have time to discuss. We have different areas in the classroom where we work on those different skills, but we spend a lot of time in discussion, and then we take those skills or illness or disease, and then we put it to practice with our mannequins and such.
Great. It sounds like all of you do a really good job kind of learning about it, talking about it, and then doing it in person. So that's a great way to kind of break up all of your activities. All of the programs here at Herndon Career Center are geared towards helping students earn some type of industry recognized credential. Can you give a brief overview of what that credential is and how it can be beneficial for their future career goals? Law enforcement.
Law enforcement has a standardized state industry recognized credential, or IRC. So From day one, you'll hear I'll say industry recognized credential. After that, you'll hear me say IRC a lot. It's really a two-part program right now. You will take a written test, and probably after about the first 3 or 4 weeks of school, you will take a pre-test, and then that same test at the end of the year will be administered. And if you score a passing score on that test, then you will be allowed to go to take the state hands-on industry recognized credentials test. And that test is divided into basically 4 parts: a crime scene, a car stop, you do a oral interview, and then there's a written exam as part of it. That's a problem solving piece. So that's the one standard we have. We're also going to be looking at we do CPR and first aid. Nursing has taught that in the past. This year, Ms. Huth is going to probably be teaching her own CPR and first aid. She's a certified instructor. And we are also looking at this year adding the OSHA 10, because it does apply to certain types of calls if you go into law enforcement, which you might be going into.
Thank you. And Foundations of Nursing?
Hey, our students can come in either their junior year or their senior year. And if they come in their junior year, well, either way, whichever year they come in, the first year students are working on their certified nursing assistant, and that is the credential that they will receive at the end of the year. There's a lot of hoops that they have to jump through in order to get that. But we will work in like Ms. Clusser was saying, we work in the classroom and at clinical. And when we're at clinical, we're basically doing on-the-job training. And we were working alongside the CNAs that work there in the facilities. And so we get a lot of experience and a lot of training in the nursing home setting, and a lot of real world learning at that point. And then once we have completed the 100 clinical hours throughout the year, like she said, we go 2 days a week. And so we will accumulate those 100+ hours. And at the end of the year, then we can take the certified nursing assistant exam. And that is through the state of Missouri. And so a lot of the rules and the expectations come from the state of Missouri, and a lot of the prerequisites that we have to abide by. So with that, again, we also have the first aid and CPR certification throughout the year. We will get that before the end of the year as well. So they can walk out of here with their CNA, first aid, and CPR. A lot of them will go on to, and we'll get into that later, but a lot of them will continue working in the field or take that on into nursing school. Now, the ones that will be here their junior year and they complete the CNA, and they can, there's a very tight qualification guideline, but they can come back as a CMT student, certified medication technician. And those are for CNAs, and we can only take 2 students in each group per teacher. So not very many students are eligible to come back for that CMT. And they do a lot of independent learning, and they learn the pharmacology, learn how to pass medications in the nursing home. And when we are at clinical the second semester, they're actually passing medications while we are there with them to the nursing home residents. Even though, you know, we do train in the long-term care environment, I did want to say that our students often secure employment as CNAs working with a variety of age groups. So it's not just working with the geriatric population.
Yeah, they can actually go into the hospital. In the hospital, they give them a little bit more training so they can do a few more tasks. But absolutely, they're not just into the nursing home. So
I think that is a really important distinction, and thanks for making that. EMT.
So the EMT program goal is to have you prepare to take the national certification for EMTs. The state of Missouri has, like nursing, a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of prerequisites. We have Herndon requirements, and we have state of Missouri requirements. But at the end of the school year, you will have your course completion, And then you will be ready to take the national certification through the National Registry of Emergency Medical Technicians. When you complete those requirements and you pass those tests, then with that certification, then you can obtain your state license as an EMT.
Excellent. Those certifications are so important for students. And I think one other question that stems from that is, what did students do with that certification after high school? So what types of post-secondary opportunities do you typically see your students pursue? And how do you help them achieve those goals? Law enforcement?
With my students, the industry recognized credential is one thing they can take, and is something that will help build their resume that they can add and show people in industry. And in the state of Missouri, most of the chiefs of police are on board with knowing what that credential is, because it is standardized with most of the career and technical ed programs across the state. Some of the other things we look at as we starting second semester, I'll typically start showing them job options that are available and job opportunities. And every student I've worked with so far has contact information where they can get a hold of me. So even though this is a 1, sometimes 2-year program, it's a never ending program as far as students working with me. I'm working with a couple students right now on what things they need to do to be applying for jobs. And we're working with getting them into putting applications into different departments. A lot of students do go on to get their college degree or at least an associate's, and then move on to working for police departments. Like I said earlier, I think we have one student getting ready to start the academy. Mr. Ripley, that was there before me, had a student that I think has been working for Warrensburg Police Department. So we certainly work with them on job opportunities after high school and post-high school education.
Thank you. Foundations of Nursing?
We try to get in guest speakers for multiple different things. What's available to them after school, after high school. We bring in colleges. We bring in guest speakers from nursing homes and from other people that are actually advertising for the job. So they get an opportunity to see what's out there. And that's very, very important to them. And also, I'm just going to throw this out, and Nate, you can delete it if you want. This is also a really good position to find out if you can deal with some of the not so nice things about nursing before you start college. And, maybe you think, well, you know what, I don't think I like this as much as I thought. So it's a great way to just explore what the future can hold for you.
I'm going to leave that in there, Terry, because one thing I always tell students when I'm doing recruitment for your program is you'll find out if you can handle blood, bile, and bodily fluids. So it's a good way to make sure that's something you're passionate about doing. So, okay. And Eric for EMT.
So what can you do as an 18-year-old EMT? There are ambulance services that employ 18-year-old EMTs. There's private companies that hire EMTs to be security officers along with EMTs. Hospitals will hire EMTs as aides or techs in different departments. So there are employment opportunities for EMTs right out of high school. And then the other component is if you think you want to be a paramedic, you have to be an EMT first. So you have to have that Missouri state EMT license in hand for paramedic programs. And then also, if you want to be a firefighter, you have to be an EMT also. So from a college where you want to go post-secondary, having that EMT license is important. And then there are several employment opportunities if you want to do right to work and then more maybe school.
Okay, thank you. So students come from a variety of schools with a lot of different ideas about what they're going to learn in your classes. Can you just touch on some preconceived notions that students have maybe had kind of coming into your program, law enforcement?
I've had from student feedback over the years, one of the preconceived notions was I had a student my first year that says she kind of approached it with expecting me being a former police officer. She had a mindset that she thought I would have. And she goes, you're just like a regular person. And it was kind of nice to see that you can develop that to show them that a police officer is like anyone else, that it's a job, it's a career, it's some would even refer to it as a calling, but you can be a regular person and do this job. And so that's one of the preconceived notion. I think the preconceived notion too is sometimes what you see on TV. We'll break down a TV show and tell them that you get DNA back on CSI in 45 minutes. And I said, there's probably going to be DNA coming back on cases I worked for. This probably has not even come back yet. And I've been retired from the field almost 3 years.
That's definitely a good one. Television definitely paints law enforcement in a very interesting picture at times. So foundations of nursing.
Okay, well, we have to tail right on to that, Roger. It's not Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is not real. I'm seeing a lot of new programs come out on TV, and we tend to pick them apart. It's not real. They don't. Nurses don't look like that at the end of the day.
What's fun though, if I may, is after first semester going into second semester, they've had so much information that they come and tell us, well, I watched Grey's Anatomy last night and oh my God, they did CPR wrong. Well, duh, now you know what we're talking about. It's just not real.
Right. It gives a little validity to it. And not all students, when they're coming into our program, realize that they're actually going to be working with real life residents. And our residents are older. It's a geriatric population. At this time, we're not going into the hospital setting. We're not taking care of babies. A lot of them want to go into nursing to take care of the babies and the children and all of that. And, when they're here, they're working with geriatric population. Now, once they get certified and get their jobs and go on, then they can work in hospital, nursing home, whatever field that they want. Also, one of the things that I was thinking about too is nursing isn't always, they may say that they want to go into nursing to take care of babies. And they'll say, well, I won't have to give somebody a shower, or I won't have to get someone off the bedpan because I'm going to take care of babies. You still have to learn those basic skills, and you will have to do that in nursing school. That's just one of those things that you will have to do. You still have to do the sometimes unpleasant things, but we treat everybody with respect and dignity while we're doing it. And one of the other things that's pretty off topic of what we were talking about is the students don't realize that they need to have their own transportation to clinical. That is a requirement. We don't bus the students to clinical. They have to find their own transportation, whether they drive, parent takes them, or they carpool.
Thanks for making that distinction about transportation. I know that makes your program a little more unique than some of our others. And Eric, for EMT.
Well, the EMT program, not much more I could add than what has already been discussed, but our program has a lot of curriculum and a lot of study time, and it's extremely important that you stay on top of that, that you're somebody that doesn't need a lot of reassurance and guidance, because we, like nursing, we hit the ground running, and it's important that you stay up. We slow down towards the end of the second semester because we're getting through the curriculum, and then we have more time to put it all together. Last year and this year, we are not doing clinicals on ambulances due to the coronavirus. So we're doing virtual clinicals. We're not very heavily clinically based in an EMT program. We're only required to do 5 what's called patient contacts. So that's 5 transports of patients. So it's a little bit different setup than nursing. One thing I would like to say is for the students that are thinking about the fundamentals of nursing your junior year, and you're thinking about a nursing career, what are you going to do your senior year? The EMT program is a great course to take because it introduces you to a different world of healthcare than the CNA program, or if you are thinking about critical care nursing, it's your introduction to emergency medicine. So junior year, fundamentals of nursing; senior year, the EMT program. They work real well together. And I certainly enjoy having a second year Herndon student that has been a CNA because you already have a base of knowledge moving into the program. So just think about that for you juniors that are thinking about what are you going to do your next 2 years.
All right, thank you. So all of you have kind of touched on it a little bit already. And so I just want to kind of get your feedback. Our business partnerships here at Herndon are a big component of all of our programs, but can you touch base on how industry is integrated into your program and curriculum? Roger?
Yeah, we have a lot of great partnerships with industry. And this fall even, we've had retired Kansas City police speak. We've had highway patrol speak for our class, and we try to integrate those. But when we get back to in-person classes and once people can come back into the building, then we do utilize the bomb units have come out before, traffic investigation units have come out and demonstrated car stops. We do some joint work with even EMT where we've done dispatch tours because that's a part of their program is to see the communication side of it. So we've done some joint field trips like that. Kind of helps with Mr. Dooley being a bus driver. So, but we try to utilize having specialized units come out and talk to the students. But I also like some of just the ordinary patrol officers to talk, because if you go into the police side of it, that's something you will probably be doing for at least the first 2 years.
Thank you. Foundations of Nursing?
A couple of things. One, back to what Eric was talking about. When we do parent-teacher conferences, I bring up the EMT program because there is a special job description, job period, in the emergency room for people who have their CNA and who have their EMT. And if you're an adrenaline junkie, that is, I can't imagine, that would be a great job. And it's a higher pay than just a CNA. And I know each ER usually has several positions for that. So that's something to think about. Why we're still talking about coming back second year, there are other opportunities. We have law enforcement. We've had nursing students junior year go into law enforcement. We've also had juniors finishing the CNA and then going into cosmetology. You need to broaden your horizons, and this is a great place to do. I also had a student, about 5 years ago, who went into automotive. So the sky's the limit, guys. You need to use this time to investigate. Okay, back to industry. We work really hard with them. Well, of course, with clinical, we're inundated with industry because that's industry. So at the end of the year, we shadow in the hospitals. Usually we go to Centerpoint, and students get to see operating room, they get to see surgeries, they get to see babies being born, all kinds of stuff. Centerpoint has been very gracious to have us. Let's see, what else do we?
The UMKC students.
Yeah, UMKC. We started this program, oh gosh. How long have you been here?
I've been here 9.
So I think it was 8 years.
It's probably been about 8 years.
8 years. We have an affiliation with UMKC nursing students, student nursing department. And as part of their senior rotation in community health, several are assigned to us, or actually they volunteer. So we have these wonderful students, nursing students, come in, work with our students, and they really develop a cool relationship, because they'll ask the UMKC students that they questions that they would not ask us. So it's wonderful. The students love it. UMKC loves it. What else?
It's a good mentorship.
It is. It is.
This year with being hybrid or virtual, our UMKC students were able to help us out, even though we didn't have students in the building, but they were still here and they did skills videos for us. So we've been able to develop a skills library, video library, so that we'll be able to use that for years to come. But it's really, even though they haven't been in the same room, the students have developed kind of a relationship, I guess you'd say, with the UMKC students, and that is always, every year, that is a key component. It's a lot of fun, and we're starting to see some of our Herndon students that were in our classes. Now they're coming back and working as UMKC students in our classes.
It was really cool this year. I had 2 of the students come back. They're both seniors, ready to graduate, and it was really neat. So
Excellent, thank you. And EMT?
So the EMS industry partners, when you are approved to go out and do clinicals, our clinical providers are the Raytown Fire Department, AMR, American Medical Response, which is the ambulance provider for Independence, Missouri, and John Knox Village in Lee Summit. So those are 3 of our primary providers, industry partners. But also, like Mr. Bauer said, we take field trips and we see different communication centers. So we go to Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department to where their communication center is, which also is the building that they operate their EMS program out of. So we get to see how that works. We go and visit Children's Mercy Hospital and their transport program. We visit Kansas City, Missouri Communications in conjunction with law enforcement. We have visited Lee Summit Police Department and Lee Summit Fire Department Communications in conjunction with law enforcement. And then we also take a trip out to one of the Life Flight Eagle bases and see the aircraft for the helicopter ambulance operations. So we have lots of great partners and that just love to have us come out and tour, or the ones that we actually get to do some clinical time with.
Thank you. I know this year has been hard for all of the programs on our campus, just given how much industry integration we do across all program areas, from post-secondary institutions, from hospital and clinical settings, dispatch centers, police departments. It's definitely been a challenge. And I think you guys, and I want to thank you all for doing such a good job throughout the year getting those partners involved. So this was touched on a little bit already, but one question that we kind of added last minute on you is most of our programs at Herndon Career Center are 2-year programs. That tends to be, the exception for that tends to be in our health and human services. And all of your classes are classified as 1-year programs. I know for nursing and for law enforcement, we'll take back a couple students for a 2nd year. But what would you say to a prospective student that they could take their junior year to prepare to come here their senior year, or let's say they're with you as a junior, what could they do their senior year, either at Herndon or outside of Herndon, to really continue their career pursuits? Law enforcement?
I always recommend really to be a good police officer, a well-rounded education. And one of the skills that you will use every day is communications, whether it's written or oral communication. So certainly your English classes, your speech classes, those will help you a lot in the field. So making sure you have all of those credits if you come in as a junior. I would also recommend, and I think Ms. Plusser discussed this too, is that look at other programs at Herndon, because a lot of times the same person that may be considering being a police officer might also be the same person that's considering being a firefighter or an EMT, and they could go into that program. And we've had students that did law enforcement the first year, did EMT the second year. My very first year teaching, I had a student that was in my program and then went into Mrs. Pratt's program, and now she's expressed an interest to really going into law enforcement. But she's also got the basis for a job that can help pay her college, because I like to talk to students about being able to go through college and cash flow it. And if you can find a decent job, then you don't have to worry about student loan debt. So that's just kind of my little piece of advice for them.
Okay, thank you. And Foundations of Nursing?
Yeah, we did kind of talk about this a little bit, but also we wanted to mention too that a lot of our students, they will get hired on as a CNA from the clinicals in which they did their clinical experience. So it's either John Knox Village, either the care center. John Knox Village is so huge. So in assisted living, we've got quite a few students that are working out there. We've got a number of students that are working at Villages of Jackson Creek, and they stay on there for
Memory care.
Yeah, memory care, definitely. They stay on there for quite some time. And a good portion of our students will either, after they leave our program, if they're seniors, they're going on to college, and a lot of them are going into nursing school just right off the bat, but they're also working as a CNA. And then one of the things too, you know, again, explore your horizons, and you know, there's so many options. If a student doesn't want to come back the second year, I do encourage them, if they're juniors this year and for their senior year, to work on their college classes there while they're in high school, if they choose not to come back to Herndon. But a lot of them do. And it's the young lady that Mr. Bowers was talking about, when I spoke with her recently, she is going to university for law enforcement or criminal justice, but she's working as a CNA in the area nursing home where she's living right now.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'd like to just add, our students love being here. They really do. It's not the typical high school experience. They definitely enjoy what they're learning, enjoy the hands-on and whatnot.
They feel safe. Yeah. They feel safe here. It's like a family. Our classes are smaller, and it's a family feel.
Okay, and to EMT.
Yes, so my program is a little bit different than the other two. My program is for seniors only. The reason that was set up that way is because you used to need to be 18 to sit for the test. And so you don't have to be 18 anymore. You can now be 17, but it's still for seniors. So what do you do in your junior year? Fundamentals of nursing, law enforcement, construction. If you can't find a Herndon program that works for you your junior year, then take those classes that would help you understand the body better, anatomy, physiology, biology, something of that standpoint. So when you come in to the EMT program, you have a little bit of knowledge on how the body works, because we do spend some time with that, not as much as being a paramedic or a nurse or a doctor, but we open the body up a little bit, because you have to know how things work. So that's what we do.
Excellent. I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon to speak to the participants who are here with us, as well as to those who will watch this recorded later. I do want to kind of piggyback on something that Ms. Plusser said, and that's that Herndon is a great experience for the right student. And we're all about making sure that we can find the right program for the right student and make sure it's a good fit for them in the process to really help them make that next step in their career. I know I'm not alone when I say this, but if you want any more information on one of the programs you heard today or one of the others, this video will be loaded into our Herndon Career Center website. I know that I would be more than happy to answer any emails you might have. The staff directory will link to any one of our emails, so you can feel free to email myself. Again, my name is Nate Zier. I'm the school counselor here. But if you have program-specific questions, I don't think I'm out of line in saying that our teachers are more than happy to answer those as well, and frankly, sometimes can give better responses than I can. So I want to thank you again for your time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now so we can take any questions there might